I share with you a Native American prayer from the Ojibwe tribe. Grandfather, look at our brokenness. We know that in all creation, only the human family has strayed from the sacred way. We know that we are the ones who are divided, and we are the ones who must come back together to walk the sacred way. Grandfather, Sacred One, teach us love, compassion, and honor, that we all together may heal the earth. May it be so in all of our endeavors. Come, let us worship together.
With apologies, of course, to Robert Frost and Ralph Waldo Emerson. 2 roads diverged in the Yellowwood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler. Long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth, then took the other just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim. So nigh is grandeur to our dust, so near is God to man. When duty whispers low, thou must, the youth replies, I can. And from Executive Order 10631, Code of Conduct, modified in 1988, I am an American, fighting in the forces which guard my country and our way of life. I'm prepared to give my life in their defense. I'm a veteran. I do not come from a family with long-term participation as veterans. However, my uncle and father-in-law, served in World War II. My father volunteered to serve in World War II, but was in a war-critical industry. 3 brothers-in-law served in Vietnam. A sister-in-law served in the Army. My stepson-in-law served in the National Guard. My son and stepson are currently on active duty, and at least one grandchild intends to enter the military. Many times we seem to forget that we are in a community of veterans, except on Memorial Day when we celebrate those who gave their lives in the defense of our nation, and on Veterans Day when we celebrate the lives of those veterans still with us. My story begins with high school graduation in 1963. At my graduation party, if you will, I was asked what my plans were for the future. I quickly responded that I planned to go to college, get my degree in education to teach secondary mathematics, teach a few years to pay off my student loans, and then join the Peace Corps to see the world. My parents, a Unitarian Universalist minister and spouse, seemed quite pleased with this. Shortly after that, my mother and I went to college student registration and orientation, where I saw several students in Air Force ROTC uniforms and asked them what this was all about. They explained the program to me. I could join Detachment 640 for my first 2 years without obligation, as long as I remained a student in good standing, then get paid a stipend for the next 2 years should I remain with the program. Staying with the program would require a 4-year commitment on active duty following graduation. My thoughts were that I could join for 2 years, and then if I didn't like it, I could get out. My parents became somewhat less than pleased with the direction I was taking. A decision had to be made, and I made it. As it turned out, I stayed with the program despite some shortfalls and stayed my full 4 undergraduate years. During the same period, I was also a member of Student Religious Liberals, or SRL, a UU organization for college students, which was in large part against the war. Most of its members were pacifists and conscientious objectors. My conscious decision to remain with the military caused obvious conflicts between my upbringing and my involvement as a son, a cadet, a student, and membership in the SRL. The resolution of these conflicts was neither easy nor quick. During my senior year, a notification was posted on the detachment bulletin board that the Air Force was starting a new graduate program and was looking for volunteers. Along with the degree came another commitment of 3 active duty years. By this time, it was 1967, and the war in Southeast Asia was accelerating. My parents were still apprehensive about my choices and hoped that the war might be over by the time I graduated in 1969. Of course, as we know now, that would not be the case. Following graduate school, my first operational assignment became a historical study and analysis stateside. By this time, my folks had pretty much accepted my life's chosen direction, and my intention was to remain in the Air Force until retirement. However, remember that this was 1969 and nearly the peak of combat. As it turned out, in 1972, I was deployed to Southeast Asia. A young man's dream, although it didn't take long to find out war's truths. Nor did it take long to feel the responses of war protesters whose right to dissent we were defending, war or not. I spent my time in Vietnam and Thailand and continued my career out to 20 years, retiring in 1987, fortunately in one piece. Then continued another 28 years as a government contractor supporting our armed forces. Every year for Veterans Day service, we ask veterans in our congregation to stand and be recognized. But what more can we do? What more do we do for these men and women and their families who have honorably served? What more do they want? What more do they need? These questions are seldom if ever asked in UU congregations, and a lot of this is based on UU mindset carried over from the Vietnam era, when UUs were in large part protesting the war and placing the blame on the men and women who served rather on those that employed them as a political alternative. Fortunately, this attitude has changed since 9/11, but still there is a recognizable carryover from that era. UUs are typically anti-war and peace-seeking. This is a mindset that is part and parcel of our beliefs. However, there are those who believe that in order to have those beliefs, defense of our UU principles, and the right to believe in them is necessary. This defense can be used or abused by those in power. However, there's not one veteran, of sound mind anyway, who wants war. And I believe that that can be said of virtually all UU veterans. Veterans want the same recognition, respect, and acceptance that our board members identify in their welcoming speech each Sunday. They want help when help is needed. They sometimes need to make sense of their experiences. They often need people who will simply listen. They need support when asked. They need community. We each choose our way, our own way. With this thought, another quote from Robert Frost. As soon as I get there. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. I dedicate this chalice lighting to all veterans and their families, not just UUs, those on active duty who are serving and those still among us who have served their nation in war and in peace.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its calling. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
God of many names, source of all love, In the face of all this, sometimes the only prayer we have is, thank you. We pray that this will be enough. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Amen.
This is a reading from Chaplain George Tiger's book, War Zone, Faith, and Army Chaplain's Reflections from Afghanistan. And it's published by UU Publishers Skinner House Books. The military has taught me much. Perhaps most of all, it has taught me about the power of individual choice to shape the course and character of our lives. As much as military women and men are told what to do on a daily basis, in the end, we each make a choice to serve. For most of us, that choice has changed our lives for the better. What I could not do is find words to fully explain what it is like to be deployed to a combat zone. It is not all shooting, explosions, and fear. Actually, that was a very small part of it. There were long stretches of boredom, hours of work, moments of joy, and some of the most powerful friendships I will ever have. From marathon games of wiffle ball on a makeshift field to hoisting casualties into a medevac bird to memorizing a close friend who never reached the age of 25. Combat changed me, I believe for the better. One night several weeks before going home, I lay awake thinking of all I had been through. I tried to imagine how this time changed me, or if it had at all. I wrote these lines. I am an Afghanistan war veteran. I don't want your pity. I served 2 tours with honor. I've been shot at, blown up. I put friends in the body bags, seen them die, sent them home for the last time. According to popular myth, I should be a crazy, unstable, angry PTSD victim. They didn't have that when I was there. I am none of these. The TV news says, you should be careful around me. They say I need help, I will never be the same. Because of what war has done to me. When you look at me, don't see a caricature. When you hear my story, don't sigh and look away. When you think of me, don't wish I had never gone to war. War has not scarred me for life. It has made me more. Chaplain George Tiger, August 2012.
I wish war didn't exist. Just like in the song that we sang a few minutes ago. If just everyone would want peace for each other, we would all be just fine. But that's not the world we live in. I also wish that all people were invested in each other's best interest, that sadly power and greed, mixed up with nationalism and maybe also some altruistic desire to create a better situation for a certain segment of people, mixed up with all kinds of other politics, come together to create our very, very complex world. There's no question that our country needs a military, and there are few other jobs on this planet that ask as much sacrifice as the military might, and often does. I also can honestly say that I disagree with a number of decisions made by our government leaders to engage in military conflict, putting our people in harm's way for questionable purposes. I know many in the military who have been in harm's way, who also question these decisions. Joe made a great point in his chalice lighting. Wasn't that a great chalice lighting? When he said, there is not one veteran, of sound mind anyway, who wants war. I would like to remind you of a quote from Barack Obama in his acceptance of the Nobel Peace Prize. He said, "The soldier's courage and sacrifice is full of glory, expressing devotion to the country, to cause, to comrades in arms, But war itself is never glorious, and we must never trumpet it as such. So part of our challenge is reconciling these two seemingly irreconcilable truths. That war is sometimes necessary, and war, at some level, is an expression of human folly. So I really appreciate hearing George Tiger's perspective from our reading this morning, when he talks about making the choice to serve in the military, and how, for most, this choice has changed lives for the better. I have never served in the military. I have been around many people who have. So I appreciate hearing this perspective. But the first thing that comes up in my mind as I wrestle with the difficulties and these seemingly irreconcilable differences, I have to ask, is George Tiger saying that war and combat are a good thing? Well, I'm quite sure that that is not what he is saying. Rather, that the very dangerous and difficult circumstances brought everyone together in a deep and lasting and powerful bond that most of us civilians will never be able to truly experience or understand. This is not the reason to put people in harm's way. It is the human spirit, in the face of life and death, reaching out with what matters most in life: love and compassion, caring for one another. Countless times, I'm guessing, those in combat have wished that the government leaders could experience this human spirit, this spirit of life that wants so badly to triumph beyond sides, beyond war. It seems that this spirit alone, when deeply felt and understood, would put a stop to all war. So today, let us give thanks for the spirit of life. This spirit that is sometimes most felt and understood when it is most threatened. So without celebrating war itself, let us give thanks for all the powerful lessons that are hard-won gifts for our veterans. In the reading, George Tiger said, "When you look at me, don't see a caricature. When you hear my story, don't sigh and look away. When you think of me, don't wish I had never gone to war. War has not scarred me for life, it has made me more." I am glad this is true for George Tiger, and I hope that it is true for many of our veterans, as he says that it is. And as Jim also says it's true for you. I appreciate that. And we also know that, as George Tiger also talks about in his book, that is not true for everyone. In Joe's chalice lighting, he mentioned the uneasiness that many have in celebrating Veterans Day. During Vietnam, and for many years after, all too often, the soldier was the one blamed because they were a tangible, visible symbol of this war that many considered unjust and fought hard against in protests and such. This perspective completely ignores, however, the veterans' humanity, their very real human need to be helped, healed, loved, and cared for. So many suffered not only from the wounds of war, but also from the wounds of blame and rejection when they returned. Today, we want to honor and thank our veterans for their service to our country. But before we can properly and truly do that, we need to take a look at this subject that makes us uneasy and uncomfortable. What is it that bothers us, that makes us want to turn away? Is it that somehow one would be condoning military actions in war by helping those who were involved. Maybe some just reject anything military on the basic principle that it goes against our desire for peace. Perhaps it is a subject that makes us uncomfortable because it forces us to see a glimpse of the extreme pain and difficulty and suffering of others. As Unitarian Universalists, this has been a challenging subject for a long time, but in true UU fashion, it is the difficult subjects that we choose to engage with in courageous conversations and work most deeply. The Unitarian Universalist Association's study action issue, maybe you didn't realize we have study action issues, but we do every year. The study action issue from, I believe, 2006 to 2012 has been to find a middle way between these two seemingly opposite ends of a spectrum, pacifism and supporting just war. So this study issue has led us to recognize the importance of embracing our veterans and the important work that they do as we all work for peace in the world. Let us not forget that they too are working for peace in the world. This shifts the paradigm from polarization to working together for peace. Granted, it may be from two very different perspectives and very different ways, and you might not even agree with all of it. That's okay. We're Unitarian Universalists. We don't always agree. That's a good thing. But we are all working for peace. Now we have a perspective to truly and honestly celebrate and honor our veterans and all that they do and all that they have given of themselves to serve our country and our world. Now we can truly allow them to be in our hearts and embrace them fully as brothers and sisters, which they are. Joe, in your chalice lighting, you gave us a challenge when you asked, what more can we do for these men and women and families who have honorably served? What more do they need? What more do they want? The UUA has recognized the uneasy relationship we as a denomination have had. And with that in mind, we have come out with a number of supporting materials. One is George Tiger's book that was mentioned earlier for our reading. I encourage you to read it. Once again, the title of it is War Zone Faith, an Army Chaplain's Reflection from Afghanistan. Some of you might know George Tiger because he was here. And as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was affiliated with this congregation as and he spoke here many a time. So it's an honor for me to share the pulpit with you. So I encourage you to check out his book, and we also have new curriculum, a new curriculum specifically for military veterans and families. So I hope that we can in the future begin to provide classes and small groups that focus on the needs of our veterans and their families. But I need to hear from you. I need to hear what you need and what you want and what would be the most helpful for you. I too believe that we need to be there in whatever ways we can to support you fully as a part of this welcoming and loving faith community that you are a part of. In the new curriculum I just spoke about, called Military Ministry Toolbox, UU minister and Navy chaplain, Reverend Cynthia Kane, addresses these issues with her own questions. Returning from war, our people, especially young people, with a crisis of faith, hurting and wounded to the core. For many of the service members, all they thought they believed about God and goodness is destroyed. They are looking for a way to make sense of their experiences in their lives. The question for Unitarian Universalist congregations is this: will we be the communities that can open our arms to these hurting people? Can we model how to move beyond assumptions about military members and their reasons for serving, and reach out to the souls searching for another way of thinking, another way of being in the world? I believe we can. I believe we have the sensitivity and open-mindedness, especially to people with differing views and practices. After all, is this not the essence of Unitarian Universalism? Freedom, reason, and tolerance. Though initially my call to Navy chaplaincy did not make any sense to me, it does now. Since conflict and fighting have been a part of human history since the beginning of time, then for me to do the work of peace is more than just practicing peace. I must understand the making of war. We, you and I, we are a part of our nation's soul. We too are patriots who cherish the rights and privileges of our countries. And we too support and defend our country's ideals through the very practice of our faith. Our country needs us, and we in the military need you. End quote. So we, my friends, have been called to serve those in the military. And now is our chance to show love and gratitude and support for all those in the midst who have served in the military, and for their families who have kept life going at home while their loved ones have been deployed. Now is our chance to heal those old narratives that no longer serve us and that only harm our ability to care for those who have chosen to protect and serve our country. Yes, we all want peace. And those who serve in the military want it even more than we do. I would if I was in harm's way. And they have chosen to put their lives on the line to work for this peace. Let today be a reminder to thank them for this. Let us thank them for all the ways they have personally and collectively contributed to the safety and security of our country, and for the assistance they have provided to people and countries all around the world, as they too work to make this world a better place. Let there now be a roll call to honor those who serve and who have served in the military. Let us begin with a minute of silence for all who have lost their lives in military service for this country. May these words not ring hollow. May this word become a new prayer of freedom. May freedom be a new inspiration and a new call to action. For none of us are free until all of us are free. And this freedom for all takes all of us to heal each other by building relationships of understanding and compassion. May it begin here, and may it begin now.
Nurtured by this community, inspired by all that we share, may our actions carry this love forward into our lives and into our world every day.
Walk in love. May it be so.